This is the part of the podcast, by the way, where we all simultaneously wipe the egg away from our face.
Remember Shaq Griffin when he first came in, and his first year, he was incredible, and everyone was like, "It's the second coming of Sherm." Just listen, just shut up and listen.
Pick number 5. This is the part of the podcast, by the way, where we all simultaneously wipe the egg away from our face because, you know, the Seahawks, no, we're not taking a cornerback at 5. Who the Pistons mocking a cornerback at 5 to the Seahawks? It's certainly not us, certainly not any other Seahawks fan or non-Seahawks fan. None of the experts were mocking corners at 5. So what does Pete Carroll and John Schneider do? They take a cornerback at 5, and it just so happens to be the best cornerback in the draft, Devon Witherspoon. I'm over the moon. I didn't think I'd be over the moon when we sort of, before the draft, mentioned and speculated about taking a corner at 5. But now that we've done it, and now that the dust has settled, I'm absolutely over the moon. It makes total sense. Me and Mitch were talking about it before you two lads got in the call, that why didn't we make more of a case for this beforehand? We feel pretty stupid for not saying that this makes total sense before we just brushed it off. Yeah, they never do that, looking back on the history. But now that they've done it, you just think, yeah, do you know what? It makes total sense. And Devon Witherspoon, I mean, dearie me, he's just in press coverage in the Power 5 last season, 107 snaps. He allowed just 1 yard in all of those snaps, just 1 yard. I mean, the guy's ridiculous. The only concern with him, obviously, is his size and the way he plays the game. Very violent, very, very sort of physical. Loves to get around the line of scrimmage and hitting people. But the character is a massive part of why the Seahawks have taken him. And he just fits the mold beautifully. He complements Tariq Woolen beautifully. And again, as I was saying to Mitch before we started recording this podcast, that it makes total sense in the sense that, okay, Tariq Woolen came through last year. He's a great player. We all get that. But it very much happens all the time that once one team finds one elite corner and doesn't go and get in a second elite corner, they just get exploited. Teams just go to them whenever they know they're playing Seattle. If we hadn't taken Devon Witherspoon this year, teams would have come to Seattle going, right, well, we're not going to throw it to Tariq Woolen this year. We've learned from that mistake. Who's the second cornerback?
Just Pepper Mike Jack.
Yeah, just Pepper Mike Jack, who's serviceable, but he's not Tariq Woolen. Pepper Trey Brown, whoever we've got out there, and you know the level of ability sort of shows that the difference in ability, and we probably lose games because of it. Now you cannot escape the Seahawks cornerbacks. You can't not throw it to Tariq Woolen because you're going to have to throw it Devon Witherspoon. If you don't want to throw it Devon Witherspoon, then you're going to have to throw it to Tariq Woolen. You cannot win with the Seattle corners now, and it's just a beautiful tandem. I'm going to start with Pez because he told me off overlooking him to start the pod. Pez.
Oh no, we've got a new order now. Sorry, no.
Oh,
it's a new world order.
Back in your box.
Pez. How happy are you with this one? It's a bit sort of, under the radar. Didn't expect it to happen, but when that pick was revealed on Friday night, what was your initial reaction?
I was surprised, but also not surprised in the same. Like, it's a bit like you said, how did we not look into it? We kind of did without saying it. Like, on different pods in our Discord, I've always said, if you could trade out of 5, and I've always had that stance, if you could trade out of 5, I'd trade out of 5 because the talent around there, I was just never convinced. Unless like a Will Anderson fell to 5. But then I have my reservations about Will Anderson. Probably stupidly, I'll get proven wrong, whatever. And I've just never sold on it. So really, we kind of did see it coming because we spoke about, is there an actual solid talent, except for like a Jalen Carter taking out all his personal debt flags, who's worth a 5th overall in this draft? And so for me, I said it when we did our watch party on the night, I wasn't too happy at first with it initially. Like at 5, I think people were shocked and reaction kind of showed because Was he worth a 5th overall? But I think I mentioned it in the Discord saying the thing what people aren't seeing with the Cardinals is they need corner, they need D-line. Like, they need so much. Like, why wouldn't they go and get it? And it came out, was it John or Pete turned around and said that there was rumours that the Cardinals could have took Witherspoon. So clearly he's a lot higher than what the consensus thought. And that's me being quite hypocritical because I've stood on the fence, like Josh has mentioned before, that I don't like players being held to their draft status. I think it's bullshit that he should. So take the 5 out of it. I love it. I watched his interview. I watched his what do you call it? Like welcome interview when him
it was
and
like a press conference, wasn't it?
JSN were there together, and he just stands out. I loved it. I could have listened to him all day because he backs himself 100%. And you can tell there is no doubt in him. The tape is the tape. Like, you don't need to talk about the tape. You don't need to talk about the stats. Just listen to him talk. Listen, anyone who listens to this who hasn't actually listened to his interview and just read the bits, go and listen to him speak the words. Because I listened to it and I was like, man, this guy's going to be fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that as well because the Stacey and Ross podcast talked to Pete. They interviewed Pete, and they spoke specifically about his energy and his presence. And they basically said that from the very first time, they said the very first time he walked in the building and they met him, he just lit up the room, and everyone wanted a bit of his energy and a bit of it. You know, this is the new guy, and everyone wanted to talk to him. You know, he held like an aura, like a veteran. Everyone wanted a bit of his brain. They wanted to talk to him about stuff. Like you, I watched that interview and loved it.
He controlled that interview as well. It's interesting because who said it in the watch party where JSM seemed quite humble?
Oh no, I didn't say humble. I said bored. I'll go on to my theories on all this later.
Yeah. So he to me he looked bored, like kind of humble, and then everyone's like, so someone made a comment saying that apparently he's the worst shit talker on the field there is.
Yeah.
Now I think he is a bit of a Tyler Lockett character, very softly spoken. Again, listen to their interview, very softly spoken, very direct, but very softly spoken. Very like man of few words, but his words have meaning behind them, not just like, stumbling through an interview. So like that shows the confidence he's got. But it's like next to Devon Witherspoon, he just controlled it. It's like they asked him a question and he asked him that many questions. And it's almost like he's that alert to everything going on in life. He realized that he'd just been talking for 5 minutes and then was going to answer the question and just went, and nudged JSN and said, no, you answer this one first.
Like, I love that. I loved that. He was so switched on to like how the interview was going. He was like, I need to let my mate have have this one, and that showed a lot of awareness.
That to me, not just awareness, but it showed the teamwork, like the team. He's always thinking, and he's always thinking team.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, that secondary. Do you know what's really good for Tariq? Is you were talking about like, oh, we just won't pass his way. I think he needs this because it is like which side do you want to go down?
But I think let one of us have a chat about this as well, because you're about to say exactly what I was about to say. You're stealing all my material.
Well, what were you going to say? What were you going to say, just in case? Go on.
I was literally about to say, like, you look at... So I was champing at the bit last year when we had Tariq locking it down for just corners that people didn't want to throw at or run at. Now you've got Tariq who offers that threat of, shit, if I throw at Tariq, it's an interception. Or, if I apologise for the chavs outside my house, if you can hear that over the pod.
I'm not that close to you. I'm quite far away.
I heard it.
Or you've got Devon Witherspoon on the other side, where your QB's got to think, I could throw this and it could either be intercepted, or my wide receiver could get absolutely smashed and we'll never want to catch a ball by him again. It gives us that true no-fly zone that we've not had. Like you alluded to it before, Jim, where with Mike Jack, it was a matter of I could throw it to Tariq, but he is probably going to undercut this route and pick it or moss my own receiver. I'll go with the safe option of Michael Jackson, and we'll chance that because there's a greater possibility of us actually coming down with the ball. I think it takes a lot of pressure off Tariq. I think it means that he's not the sole number one wide receiver. I think we've got a 1A, 1B.
You'll be glad to know, Josh, I wasn't going to say that.
Oh my God.
I wasn't going to steal your material. I was going down the route of, I look at it from the point of view of, yes, Tariq was amazing last year, but you've just got to remember how long he's been playing corner and how much more developing. Like, I feel like, remember, I thought this the other day. There's something that popped into my head with Tariq. Remember Shaq Griffin when he first came in and his first year, he was incredible. And everyone was like, it's the second coming of Sherm. Just listen, just shut up and listen, right? I'm not saying he's going to go down that route or they're on the same level of talent. What I'm saying is, if you didn't bring in like a Witherspoon, where now Tariq's going to probably get put in situations where they're going to be like, right, I'm just going to throw his way because this play is better that side. It's going to help his development. It's going to help keeping him grow, because you can also look at it and go, the longer he doesn't get contested, how switched on is he going to be? You know what I mean? Do you see where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah, you're saying it continues to hone his skills because he's going to get thrown at. Yeah, I see it the same way. I see it the same way.
And don't get me wrong, the fucking truth is it's a no-fly zone. When we get into the fucking secondary as a whole in the off-season, it's a scary unit, man. Scary.
Right. It's a scary unit. I mean, like you said, Witherspoon last year, quarterback rating when targeted of 24.6. I mean, the guy's ridiculous. You pair him with Tariq, it's even more ridiculous. Mitch, you said you agree with all that as well, and it's going to be a different kind of test for Tariq this year in terms of how is he going to cope with maybe getting less targets. But in terms of Witherspoon, I mean, what kind of value have we got here? What kind of football player have we got here? And are you happy with this pick?
Yeah, I'm over the moon. I think when you really look at the things he did, you hear the term the game slowing down for people when they're 2-3 years into a rookie deal. You know, the game's a million miles an hour when they're under the lights and it's their first season. And then the game slows down and things happen at real speed, and it allows you to make more plays, read the game a bit easier, get ahead of plays, be more proactive instead of reactive to plays. Really important that on defense, because your job is literally to cover what the opponent's throwing at you. When you watched Devon Witherspoon and his highlight reels, he just seems to be constantly one step in front of the play. He's read the play before it's happened. One of his greatest things is that he reads the quarterback really well. He reads them while they're making their reads, and he adjusts accordingly. So before the ball's even in the air, he's computing it really quickly. And I think that translates, because when you see him making his interceptions, tipping balls, there's a highlight, I think it was either last year or the year before, where he's at the byline. And the ball's either going to be caught on the back shoulder by the receiver, or it's going to sail out of play. You don't factor in the fact that what is he, 5'11", 6 foot. You don't think a 6 foot cornerback is going to get to it. But what he actually does, he gets one-handed flick on the ball and pads it down to a safety. And
yeah, that was an impressive play. That I've seen that on replay quite a few times now.
But he's so far ahead of that. It looks like he's went out of it, but he's actually way ahead of it. In order to actually do that, the awareness of the guy being inside him, it's calculated, and it just shows that he's seeing the game at a speed that is a couple of knots slower than everyone else around him. I love that, because it's technically, I mean, it's probably going to be the case that when he gets into the NFL, it speeds up a bit for him. There's a bit more athleticism. There's a bit more quality in the passing. You know, everything's going to be a little bit higher for him. But he was already streets ahead of the pace anyway. So I think that you're going to really see a guy hit the ground running here. And I think he's got all the traits and the athleticism and the aggression that he's going to need to carry himself as a slightly smaller guy. I'm all over it. I think he's brilliant.
Oh, he's going to hit the ground running. He's going to hit people into the ground running very quickly. I love Devon Witherspoon, so I'm going to start this grading process off, like you say, with a better grade than I got at GCSE level, and that is an A. It's not quite an A plus yet. I don't know why I'm not going to give it an A plus yet, but there's something just telling me not to give it an A plus just yet. But I mean, we still knocked it out of the park with this one. It's an A, and I just, like you say, I am beyond excited. I don't know how I'm going to contain myself on game day when I see Tariq and Devon Witherspoon lining up outside as corners for C. It's just beautiful. It feels like the LOB 2.0 is coming back, and I'm all here for it. So it's an A for me. Pez, what are you giving this one?
Taking out the biasty of draft, projected draft, draft capital, why a few people done me out, and I'm not including that because I don't believe in it. I'm going to say A plus.
Okay.
I am going to say A plus because people might not have thought it was a need, but it was a need.
Mm-hmm.
The type of player we're getting, everything I said, just the personality. It take out all his play, him as a person, and his IQ. I just think it's a bang on nailed Seahawks pick.
That's interesting because Pez is normally the one for getting on my back for overgrading, and he's whacking out the A pluses already. But hey, I love it, mate. It's justified. Josh, are you going to go with him?
In the draft as well. Don't forget that.
I'm between an A minus and a B plus.
That low, Josh?
Because
you always
I saw.
do this.
Now, see, a spanner in the works. I saw greater holes than cornerback. Don't get me wrong, right? The reason I've marked it as potentially in the A range is because it's now solidified our two starting corners for the next 4 or 5 years, which I think is fantastic. I'm not taking that away. I just think, personally, when you look at the way we played last year, and Mitch might counteract this because he'll have a bit more insight, we got run all over because our D-line was crap. Now, we may have addressed a little bit of that. We've taken a defensive tackle and a defensive end, but I would have preferred a premium player in that position to solidify it and stop the run, because there's a high possibility people can still run on us. So I'll go A minus.
You're not saying his name, but I'll say it for you. Fuck Jalen Carter. Mitch.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. No, I would have gone. I could have gone for
You'd have got
someone
Mazi
later.
Smith as well, yeah.
Yeah,
Not
there you
at
go.
5.
True
No,
nose
not
tackle.
He still went in the first round, though,
Got
didn't he?
one
He
minute,
went a
one
lot higher
minute.
than people thought.
Did you say Mazi Smith then?
No, not at 5.
Not at
Not
5.
at 5. He was just saying
I nearly choked on my
traded
pizza.
I probably would have traded back from 5 because the best interior defensive lineman wasn't there. Traded back, recouped some more draft capital, possibly for next year as well, and then looked to have taken someone like Gonzalez later on, and probably Mazi Smith at 20. But that's why I'm not an NFL GM.
I don't think you could have planned. You couldn't have planned to take Mazi Smith, I think, because all of his projections.
Yeah, it was second round, wasn't it?
Yeah, he always had a second round projection, and he went on the
same for everyone though. All the projections on this draft were weird,
scuffed. Yeah.
So
my grade on this, I'm going to go with an A, and I think it would be a B for me if it wasn't for the fact that we took a guy in the first round that plays a position that we never draft higher than the third round. They saw traits and characteristics in a guy and said, don't care if we reach very slightly. Maybe we reach four position. I mean, he probably goes to the Lions, right? So we probably only reach by one position. But they just saw a guy they loved and went, okay, he has to be a Seahawk, and they took him. And they've admitted they fell in love with him when they met him. So I think
it's made up for not getting Killieringo for me personally. So that's nice for me as well.
Just quickly on that then, Mitch, do you think that their hand could have potentially been forced? One, because by the sounds of it, no one wanted to trade with John Snyder because he's back to good old John, and the league just like, no.
We were drowning. We were drowning in phone calls. we had loads of trade offers. The consensus amongst a lot of the pundits and on our strategy was that they really wanted to just take the best characters / talent as possible with the first 4 picks and then address needs, but still have characteristics and traits within those needs.